Hi everyone, my name is Rocky Bhatia and currently I'm working with Adobe as an architect. But 15 years back, when I started my career with one of the service-based company, I had a very simple dream to move the ladder quickly and to become a manager. Because honestly, everyone around me was chasing this path. But with the passage of time, I realized I was not excited about people management, endless status, reports, and that path. I was thrilled for building new things. I was very excited about solving complex problems and shaping the technology. That's when I took the most important decision of my career, where I stopped chasing titles and started mastering the craft of building systems. Though I chose harder but far fulfilling path of becoming a software architect. Every engineer faces the same dilemma to chase the management or to go deep in technology and build systems. So if you are one of the engineer who is facing the same problem, then this video is for you. This video will give you the clarity, perfect roadmap and the right kind of motivation. So if you are, first of all, why to become a software architect? Software architect, because it's one of the fancy and one of the most rewarding career in our tech. So all the big companies and all the cool startups are looking for such bright engineers who can build such systems, who can solve complex problems, who can solve business problem with the cool tech. So if you are like one of those engineer, then you are good to go. If you are really sure and you want to pursue this path for becoming an architect, so the very first thing is that you need to think beyond my code and my feature. You need to see a big picture. How a user will interact, how a system will work, where would be front end, where would be back end, how different services will interact, what are the different components that are involved. If you are not able to understand, that means the very first step is then you need to go into each component. So before understanding architecture, you need to see whether you are able to understand or not. If you are not able to understand, then you need to see different components. That if the load balancer is there, do I understand why do I need a load balancer? API gateway is there. Do I understand what is the role of API gateway? First, you need to understand the common components which are there to build any system. So once you will understand, then you will understand their logical flow. So once you will understand their logical flow, then you would start understanding the overall architecture. So once you will start understanding the overall architecture, and then with the passage of time, the more and more practice that you will do, and then you'll be able to draw the architecture or you'll be able to build the solutions. And second most important thing is that we must understand that learning is very important in tech, especially in the era of Gen AI. Now it is very much important even to survive in this industry. And I get this question very frequently that I'm not working in a cutting edge tech. How should I upskill? So basically nobody's stopping us. Now how you have to like go step by step. First you need to identify, okay, this is a cutting edge I need to learn, and how you will validate your learning. So if you want to validate your learning and if you want to understand that I have understood this technology in a deep, first step is that you need to share that knowledge with your peers. So once you'll say that I want to give my presentation on this particular tech, you know that people are going to ask tough questions, people are going to ask tricky questions. So you'll go deep and understand. By the end of day, you will understand that where are some gaps that you need to fill. So once you will have that foundation, then you need to build small projects so that you can understand how this technology works at the ground level. So this is how you will evolve. Now you will get your hands dirty, you will try certain things will work, certain things will not work, but at least at the end of the day you are getting a good confidence. You need to have this attitude that you need to learn and you need to keep learning. This is the only way to survive. So this is how you have to start your journey. So first of all, we need to understand being an architect is a journey that takes time. So usually I get a question from junior folks having 2 years, 3 years of experience that I want to become an architect. So my advice is spend some time in the industry, learn certain things, and then you need to strive for becoming an architect. So there are so many things that we need to learn in a way. But if you're early in career, my simple advice is go deep as much as you can. If you are in mid career or senior, then you need to, apart from the depth, you need breadth also. So first, let us see what is required. Now, everything in our world, tech world, starts with a programming. And based on my experience, if you're striving or if you're already in that role, at least you should be proficient in two programming languages. Now, someone, so many times I get a question also that do I really need to code even at architect level? Yes. So it may vary from organization to organization, that maybe 50% or 30% you have to write a code also. But usually in each of the organization, you need to do certain POCs, you need to do certain proof of technologies, you need to review codes, you need to debug the complex systems. So you need to improve the complex system. So for that one, so if you're doing a POC, you need to write code. So once that POC would be done, you need to communicate that to your leadership or your immediate team. If you are solving some complex problem, obviously you have to go deep in the code. So that way, coding is very much required. So the more comfortable you will be the coding, the easier the life would be in your as a software architect. Now, while learning or building proficiency in languages, usually we get a question which languages that we have to choose. So it totally depends on the kind of exposure that you have got it. But based on my experience, Python is very popular and it's easy to use, and it is being used in so many areas, especially in data world, especially in ML world, in GenAI. If you can build the proficiency in Python, and the other one could be Java, but you can choose any two languages. But if you have to ask on my experience, then it should be Python or Java. So once you have built the proficiency in these two languages, then you need to move to the next step, which is you need to understand different design patterns and coding principles. So we have so many design patterns and we have different coding principles, so which really help us in writing clean and efficient code, which can definitely help in building the robust and scalable system. So we must understand the different design patterns and how to apply them, and different coding principles and how to apply them. Now, apart from design pattern, now you need to understand and you need to think that being an architect means you need to prepare an architecture, you need to go through certain architecture. So you need to understand different architecture pattern and different architecture characteristics. There are so many architecture patterns are there. Some of them are very popular, like microservices are there, master slave or leader follower is there, layered architecture is there, event driven architectures are there. So those are very much in our there in so many things. So like microservices are very much popular, everybody would have heard of. Now master slave or leader follower is very popular in distributed based system like Kubernetes or Kafka or Apache Spark. They are based on this leader follower. Any kind of database which has to deal with replication follows leader follower kind of architecture. Event driven architecture, where you are dealing with e-commerce or you're dealing with so many events, then you need to come up with event driven architecture. Something like you would use some messaging queue or publisher subscriber based system. Then so all in all, you need to explore certain architecture. You need to understand that what kind of architecture is being followed and what kind of architecture is best suited for the problem that we have to solve. Now, apart from architecture pattern, we need to understand certain architecture characteristic as well. Sometimes we say it's non-functional requirement, like how we can scale the system, what where we would choose strong consistency, where we would choose eventual consistencies, where we would choose consistencies over availability or vice versa, how we will make our system fault tolerant. So these are very much important things. When you will build the system, you need to understand all these things in detail. So once you will understand different architectural pattern, now we are going to talk about certain things where you need to do some certain hands-on, or you should have operational knowledge. So first thing is GenAI. Now everybody would have heard of GenAI. So it has dramatically changed so many things. So earlier we had microservices, we had cloud tech, we had containers. That has really changed some of our tech. But this is something which, apart from the tech, which has changed so many things in our day-to-day life. So we do so many things using LLM or generative AI applications, which was not possible. So everybody has to get their hand dirty in GenAI. Especially if you're striving for that role, then you need to understand how you can build different applications using LLMs, how different rack patterns are there, how you can build chatbots, how vector DBs are being used, and then one step ahead, how to build smart agents, how to build such applications which can solve repetitive tasks or automation you can bring using GenAI. So this is very much important. Now, apart from GenAI, there are other areas. Now, containers are there. Containers have become the fundamental part of each modern software development and deployment. So everybody must understand containers. It's not only confined to microservices world. So containers are everywhere. So once you know that, you know how containers work, then you will understand Dockers, which is a popular platform for managing the container lifecycle. So once you would have so many containers, then you will also learn why do we need Kubernetes. So you need to understand the architecture, how do we interact with Kubernetes. So basic hands-on is required. So, and then once you are able to do some hands-on in containers or GenAI, you also need to understand cloud tech, be it AWS, Azure, or most of the companies they are doing. So some companies are doing most of the work on cloud, some companies are doing some part of the cloud, but you need to understand that you would have to do something on the cloud. So fundamentals and basic understanding of any cloud is very important. So if you would understand any one of the cloud, then it is very easy to understand the other cloud. So we really need to understand one cloud. We need to have cloud knowledge. And then we have other components as well. So we need to understand CI/CD, which is very common, that any modern software deployment or dev process that we do, so CI/CD will come into picture. So we need to know that how CI/CD works, what are the best strategies, what are the different tools which are available. Then you need to understand other components, like why we need to use load balancer, why do we need API gateways, why do we need CDNs, why do we need to use distributed storage. Because once you will start building the system, these components will come into picture. So unless you won't have any knowledge of this thing, then you won't be able to build the complete architecture. So working knowledge of these components is also very important. At the end of the day, hands-on knowledge is required in certain part of the tech, which is not very confined to one area, which is very common in most of the tech. That's why we need to get our hands dirty. That's when we will get the confidence and we will be able to design a solution. We will be able to come up with the right kind of architecture once we would have done some kind of hands-on in all those areas. Now, the next is communication. So whatever the work that we do, whatever the services that we build, whatever the system that we deploy, services need to communicate. Now communication could be of two types: sync communication and async communication. So typically async communication is being used where we are doing with event based architecture and so many events are there. And when we are dealing with async kind of communication, then systems like queue based systems like publisher subscriber based system, or producer consumer kind of based system come into picture. Something like Kafka, something like Event Hub, RabbitMQ. So these systems will come into picture. So you need to get your hands dirty and you need to understand that how you have to learn this system, and you must know that how to fit these systems in any kind of async kind of communication. And these systems are also very popular in event based architecture. And sync communication perspective, we know REST is very popular. We have GraphQL. So we must know basics, that how to how to develop the APIs, how to deploy the APIs, where we will use GraphQL, where we will use REST, where I have to use gRPC as well. So at least one should have a basic and fundamental knowledge of all this communication protocol, that where and will fit and in which solution. So once you will understand the communication, then there are other aspects like databases are there. One should know the databases, and that knowledge should not only be confined to SQL databases or structured base of information, because when we are dealing with large amount of data, when we are dealing with a big system, then it's not only about structured information, then semi-structured information would be there. So that means NoSQL databases will come into picture. And NoSQL databases is a broad category where you have document related databases, something like if you're dealing with JSON, then MongoDB is there. If you're dealing with key value pair databases, that too in memory, then Redis is there, DynamoDB is there. If you're dealing with graph, where you need to establish relationship, then graph databases are there. Especially if you're dealing with GenAI, then vector databases are there. So all in all, there are popular NoSQL databases are there. One should understand where to use which database. That understanding is very important when you are building a solution, because you will not be confined only to a SQL database. Now there are many tools where one should be very handy and comfortable with, from coding perspective or development perspective, be it like Git, be it like how you can deploy your code, how you can build your code from Maven, from SBT or Gradle, from how you can establish CI/CD using Jenkins or GitHub Actions, or how you can have a Sonar kind of setup, how you can have a setup where you can do the performance benchmark using JMeter, how you can do the API testing. So these tools are very handy, and moreover, as a part of your day-to-day work as a architect, you would need to draw so many diagrams, you would need to come up with architecture where you need to present to different forums. So that means one should be very handy with one kind of tool where you can draw those diagrams and come up with nice diagrams so that you can present those diagrams. If you're dealing with large amount of data, then you need to understand how distributed system works, how to deal with batch processing, how to deal with real-time data processing, data warehousing techniques are there if you are dealing with large amount of data. Then we have security, which is also very important, that we need to understand that how to secure a system, how we will establish a communication which is secure, how, if the data is at rest, if the data is in motion, what kind of techniques are there, how to apply those techniques so that my system is secure. That way the security is also important. Now we talked about some of the hard skills from technical point of view, but soft skill is, sometimes we miss the soft skills are very important. So we need to understand that being an architect, you will do a POC, you will have to do communication. So communication means that you would have to present your solution to different leaders, or you have different teams. You would have to do stakeholder management also, so that communication plays an important role. So one should be very well versed the communication, the kind of work that you're doing, how you're able to explain, are you able to make them understand, are you able to convince them, so that communication also makes a difference. You should be a great team player because you have to collaborate. It's not like that you are doing your POC in silos. At the end of the day, whatever the outcome is, then you need to work with the team. You need to make them understand that this is the solution. Small POC that we have to do, now we have to do the full implementation. You have to be a great mentor, because as you are growing, you need to groom the talent, where people will come up with their different technical problems, you need to solve that problem. So that way these soft skills are very important. So once you would, and these skills takes time, so you need to understand that you need to have a great communication, you need to have a negotiation skill, because negotiation is required, where you need to present the solution and you need to convince that why we are choosing this one, why we are not choosing this one. So you might have to do a lot of trade-offs, that why this solution fits best for our problem, why not this one. And then you need to be a great player, you need to have be a great mentor. So all these basic skills are required. Now in this video we talked about that how to become a software architect, where we covered that the technical path and certain tips. So if you haven't subscribed to my channel, you must do so, because whatever the technologies at high level that we talked about, so in coming weeks or coming days, you will see that I'll cover all those technologies in my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for listening to me. I'll see you in the next video.